was in the dark against it all, but made it through the day, cause I found my way. I found my way. In bad times, I know I'll be okay, cause I found my way. Cause I found my way.
Hello, we're back.
We're back.
Sorry, we needed to. Oh, come on, lip gloss. So we've been talking about narcissists, and this is going to be another part on the types of narcissists. I just want to kind of flush out these types, these behaviors, to again give you a frame of reference. Where I'm coming from with this is I want you to be able to spot them, because sweet, sensitive souls have a tendency to attract them. We draw them. A narcissist will always go to someone who is kind and genuinely wants to love and validate another person. That's the relationship they're looking for. Mm-hmm. And
to exploit it.
Yep, to exploit it. And often it's anxious attachment styles that are drawn to the narcissist because we need that.
We have to prove our worth.
Yeah, and we want to
We've been conditioned to earn worth
because our family of origins. Yeah. So okay, let's start with, again, this is going to be referencing some of the videos. I want to credit "It's Not You" book by Dr. Ramani. Crazy awesome book, and just she's devoted her whole career to understanding narcissists and their styles. You want to look at her material because it will help you get out of it. Yeah. And always professional help.
Professional.
Yeah, always, especially if you're considering leaving, because narcissistic relationships can turn very destructive.
Narcissists are prone to
Violence, emotional, mental, like manipulation. It can be very toxic. So I want to take this very seriously. We're having fun with it, but at the same time, like it can get scary. It can, especially with one of the types of malignant, it's control, and they can be very destructive. You know what I mean? Physical.
Well, let's start there.
Yeah.
Malignant.
Well, no, let's get into it, because let's go with that. So narcissists are arrogant, status-oriented. They're very pretentious. They care about appearances. Like very look at me, so it's all about them, right? Yes. Obviously, narcissism, right? So one of the first types that is known as grandiose narcissism, and this is the peacockers. This is the preening, and like I was saying, pretentious, like I only buy name brand stuff. Mm-hmm. It's often like that because it's
worried about the car they drive, the type of house they have.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
Yes.
Because it's all about the facade that they're creating, this outward appearance of how people perceive them.
They're telling.
Yes. Even though it's not real, it's all about image. And that can be with parents. When their children are an extension of them, it's about how you reflect on them. So if you do something poorly, it's a reflection on them. So the grandiose, again, is just about, they're very charismatic. And they're very, they're charming.
Showmanship.
Yeah, showmanship. Mm-hmm. So you're drawn to them. But again, it's for a reason, because they need that validation, right? That critical underbelly where they're...
I think when when you're dealing with a narcissist, a lot of the buzzwords that I hear from you are, they're just so good with people, or they're just so generous, or
generosity. Yes. Yeah.
Those you kind of want to look for those things, like,
because those are important qualities for me to have in a partner. I want someone who's kind-hearted and generous.
Is it over the top though?
That's a good thing. Like, are they? Is it showy?
Yes.
We went to lunch with someone I was seeing, and you knew.
I knew.
And when the bill came, it was this big production. Like, we put the card down, and
my
it was
partner was trying to split down his card
to split the bill.
It was a huge thing of no, absolutely. He got loud,
back and forth. Yep.
Loud in the restaurant. Don't let him pay. My partner got up and went to the cash register, and he was yelling at don't let him pay. Don't even let him tip.
Yeah, like
it was a big.
Yeah, he doesn't tip, and it was just a big theatrical thing because he wanted everyone to know how generous he was, and it was this production.
When it was a $40 meal.
I know, right? It's just it's interesting, but you see this
you want to be grandiose.
Yeah.
Buy me a $200 meal.
Yeah, right.
Let me see you throw your card down now.
Grandiose is interesting because it tends to skew more male, gender-wise, like because, the jobs and in the workplace,
men are
performative.
performance-based,
Yes.
yes.
The vulnerable narcissist is more, I would say,
Women.
covert, but it's often with women. And this could be socio, like cultural, but a vulnerable narcissist they're not as charismatic. They're not as charming. It's more sullen and victimized. They're the victim. And we all know this person.
All the cards have always been stacked against them.
Yes, the world's against them. Everyone's angry at them. Why is everyone, just life is fighting me on everything.
There's always a scapegoat.
There's a petulance to it, too. It's
sense of entitlement. I'm owed this because...
Yes, the victimized. They're angry. They get very angry. And this kind of threw me, too. A vulnerable narcissist kind of looks like someone you give money to, and then it never fixes the problem. There's always more. You can crash on my couch, but then they're there longer. There's no boundaries, right? They're always taking.
A sense of entitlement.
So it's this... all the focus is on me, like a typical narcissist would have. They want the attention, but it's attention in a different way. It's like, again, covert, passive, passive aggressive.
Yeah.
So it's still all about them, but it's always their problems and just energy suckers, right?
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. Vulnerable narcissism. You get caught up in helping them, but again, it never fixes the problem. It never changes their situation because
they're always going to have a situation.
Because it's about them.
It's kind of like that Munchausen's.
Ooh, curious.
In the sense of they're always going to have a problem because that's how they get attention.
Yeah.
Is woe is me, and that's just the identity they've taken on.
Interesting.
That's how they know to get attention.
Yeah, and because it works, because people feel bad.
People want to help. I think in general, the world...
Which is kind of insidious because you're
help.
playing on people's kindness, but everyone hits their point and you will pull away, and so they just move on to the next.
Yep.
Okay, I think the most intense version of narcissism is the malignant narcissist. Yeah. This is the calloused narcissist, where there's no empathy for sure. There's not even a whiff of it. You know what I mean? They're not about it. They don't operate that way. So it comes, there's charm at the beginning of the relationship.
Doesn't last long.
Charisma, but it doesn't last. Yeah, exactly. So there's this...
they're just trying to love bomb you in.
Yeah.
To get in there. Once they've got their foot in the door, it's gone.
Yeah. And in my recent experience, it started out this way. I was being love bombed, and there's a lot of research. There's a lot of information collecting that happens in this process in the beginning, but it's all because they're trying to get information to control you,
Currency.
Yeah, to manipulate you later down the road. And so when that moment came where he tried to play on my emotions and tried to make me gaslight me. Luckily, I had the wherewithal, and I immediately I don't play games. I'm done. But it's just crazy to think about all that moment up to that point was for that purpose, right? Whether it's conscious or subconscious, it's calculated. It's definitely calculated. Yeah. So again, the charm is short-lived, but it's all for the purpose of control. Yeah. Malignant narcissists are the most likely to get physically violent too, and that's something you want to keep in mind because it's control, about maintaining the image, but it's also about controlling you and your life and making sure that their supply, that what you offer them,
they're the most prone to enmeshing with you
big time because they enmesh to control all these aspects of your life, like the buying
Where
a
are you
phone.
Going? Who are you going with? What time will you be home?
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so this is interesting because what happened in this last experience is I had gone out to meet with friends. Last minute, they invited me out, and I hadn't seen them since we really started dating. And I messaged, and I told him my plans, where I was going, what I was doing. I included him, but the fact that I didn't ask permission or I didn't include him specifically made him blow up. It was all or nothing, explosive. Not rational, and again, we talked about it's these in extreme, it was the end of the world. How could you? The betrayal, and it's I'm just going out to meet my friends. What's going on here? It's the control piece.
A malignant narcissist doesn't really understand why you need to have friends.
Yeah.
They are...
I should be your world.
Yeah, I'm
why aren't you choosing me? I should come first.
Yep.
that's when I heard it, and that's when I was like, oh, this the toxic underbelly, just like it all came up, and it was stark. And I apologized at first because, again, over the course of the relationship, just a month and a half, I was like, oh wow, maybe I did overstep. Maybe I wasn't being, I didn't think about him, and I heard the programming, like I heard it. I
literally told him
where I was going.
Yeah.
I included him. Oh my God. And then said I would see him in a few hours. But I was still susceptible to the conditioning of my family of origin, having a father that was this way, the church mentality. But I caught myself. I was like, you know what? Maybe I wasn't sincere, and maybe I didn't include him right. Like I overlooked his feelings. It was crazy. I was objective with it, and I got to be the observer of it, but it scared me which is why
you went into that role.
I went right back into that role of being manipulated.
But I think, though, that is normal for people with empathy.
Yeah.
And
that's what they play with.
Put ourselves in somebody else's shoes because I remember you calling me and saying, like, I know that for you this would be a big deal, so where did I mess up? Because to you this would have been...
But it wasn't that big of a deal. No. That's the thing. To elicit such a reaction, such a betrayal, But
with narcissists, it's never just a simple argument. It's a huge production of how you have done them wrong. And there's just
explosive. And it's just so intense, and really it made me question my reality, that gaslighting piece, that emotional...
What did I do wrong?
Yeah, because I care about someone. I care about you, and your feelings are important to me. So it was really telling in that... that's, again, why I went back to therapy, because I'm like, I'm here again. What happened, right? Again, the physical violence piece, it can be mental, but... it's this control. So once a narcissist feels they're starting to lose control, once there's that threat to them, then they double down, and that's when you get like your you can't leave, or like So if you are dealing with anything like this, if any of this is like hitting, please get a second opinion. Like find a professional. Like start doing some research, because
when the fighting isn't healthy.
Yes.
When you're playing games like I'm taking your car keys so you can't leave.
Yeah.
Or I'm taking your phone so you can't call people. That's where we're getting into the scary violence aspect. That can turn bad very quickly.
I'm thinking for sure women more so in this, but I know gay guys that, especially smaller guys, that have been in these situations where the man wants to dominate, and it's very much this, controlling their phone, their bank accounts. Like, it's nice to have a daddy, but at the same time,
there's nobody more dangerous than somebody losing control.
Yes, autonomy. The next type is the communal narcissist, and this is really interesting with the rise of social media. Yeah. Because they can't hide the same, but it's also a platform where they can really get a new sense of validation. So a communal narcissist... Social media in itself is a joke.
Ooh, it's nobody is who they say they are.
Right? It's all... It's
I'm
curated.
Putting on my best
It's
self.
always curated.
Yeah, you're going to see the best of
even
the
this,
best.
like it's I'm presenting to you what I want you to see. In essence, so that's what a narcissist is doing, about building this facade and this like how you perceive their life, right? A communal narcissist, the shirt off your back narcissist, if you will, everything is geared towards generosity, being the most generous, the most compassionate, the most. I always think of these videos, where there's a homeless person on a bench and they're filming it, and they're like, they're putting a gift by them, or they go up to them and they're like, here's $100, and they're filming this like, why are you filming it? Why you need to film it? It's weird. It's
embarrassing too if you put yourself in the other person's shoes. Like, as a homeless person, I wouldn't want to be exploited.
But they don't see it that way because they just want the money. So there's a predatory aspect.
Look at what I'm doing for others.
Yes, but you're at the expense of someone else. So this is they're always volunteering and they're always making a big thing. I'm like, it's Tuesday. That means we're going to the soup kitchen. It's always for the validation
Whenever
of
they're
others.
doing something for others, everybody has to know about it.
Yes, and if they don't get that validation, then they're going to take it out somewhere else, and that's usually in their private life and their people that are closest to them, people they're taking granted. You get this, I use the example like the celebrity parents, and then you get the tell-all book years later where the kid was like, everyone thought dad was the greatest or the mayor of the town, and then home was just
closed doors,
horrible, crazy, rageful, drunk, and like.
I think of like I Love Lucy,
Yes.
like the show. You like had this image of how Lucy and Desi were because of the show, and behind the scenes,
they were miserable.
They had the worst marriages possible.
Yeah.
But we had this sense from watching them on TV, like what an amazing.
That's a
couple.
great
That's
example.
Couples, but. My God, the
It's
pain that was in that marriage.
Oh, and the kids tell all, right?
Yeah.
Again, they seem generous, humanitarian, but it's what they're seeking is that validation, that hit, that narcissistic supply. So when a narcissist gets together with someone that's more empathic, it's the validation. They love you, they support you, they want to shower you with this love and devotion. They eat that up. That's their lifeblood, right? That narcissistic supply. And so once you cut that off, if you want to deal with a narcissist, just go
withdraw your energy.
Yeah, pull back.
You can't rationalize with certain people.
You can't, but be careful too, because there's always going to be a reaction.
Yeah.
And it may be mild, but
and this is kind of where we again are gonna put that caveat in, and you might need professional help. Please
consider it. Yeah.
There is a reaction to what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that is when people are losing control, that have to have control. That's when they become the most dangerous.
And narcissists are all about control. So the moment you start setting down boundaries, you start pulling back.
They're going to react one of two ways. They're either going to have an explosion, or they're going to just walk away because they realize you're onto them.
Yes, and that's the big thing. It can be a very dangerous space when a narcissist realizes that you are onto them. When you realize beyond their facade. So in my experience, I confronted him, and I'm like, the way you acted was just, it was kind of crazy. Like it was, I don't understand how we're here. And he was playing games. I said, I don't play games. So I withdrew my energy. The next day he does a call, and I'm like, what? Like, what do we have to say? Like, it's done. We know where this is at. And he's like, I don't think this is something I want. I'm like, okay, done. Perfect. And he called back 3 times. 3 times. And I'm like, if you were done, then why are you calling again and again and again? Because he wanted that response from me.
He didn't expect you to respond that way.
He was banking that I would be emotionally manipulated and that it would start that cycle again.
Your anxious attachment would be activated, and you'd be like, oh my God, I'm sorry. What did I do wrong? Let me fix this.
Like from my marriage, looking back over a lot of things, there were points where I should have probably left a lot sooner, you know what I mean? But it was that cycle of the anxious.
Sorry, what? It reminds me of Judy and Deborah both said to me in my readings, the very first things they say to me, you stay way too long when you should have been gone.
Yeah.
And that is so true, because I will rationalize the shit out of something.
But that's our trauma, our family of origin.
I'm just so empathetic that I'm like, oh my God, I understand where you're coming from. And like, I'm putting like my hat on and like, oh, maybe it was this, or and let me try another hat. Maybe it was that. And they always say to me, whenever I sit down with somebody who's spiritual, my team is always screaming at me. I stay in places for too long because of that.
Yeah. It is.
It just made me laugh.
It's so true, though.
I do that.
It's so true.
There were so many points in any relationship I've had, friendship or romantic, where I can just pinpoint I should have left. I should have withdrawn my energy, and I didn't. And it cost me time.
Yeah.
It cost me energy. It cost me pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It hurts to go through this stuff, because the longer you're into something, especially when you invest and you look at it as an investment.
It's things where like spirit is like throwing it in your face like a red flashing light, and if you're not paying attention, the only way to get your attention is to make it more painful.
Yeah.
And then they keep adding
because we respond to pain.
Yeah.
We do.
And so, I mean, it's gonna blow up in your face if you don't pay attention.
But it's all self-inflicted, which is the joke, right? It's the gag, because we
mean.
do it
That's
to
why
ourselves.
It made me laugh, because I do. I stay, and I know that. I stay way long past expiration dates.
It's interesting, this anxious attachment style. There's a book called Attached, and it's really good if you want to understand relationship dynamics.
You shouldn't be dating unless you've gone through attachment
it's amazing.
learning.
Yeah.
You need to know your attachment style. You need to know the type of attachments that other people have.
Awesome resource. Yeah.
You need to know.
Because the thing is, one of the most toxic dynamics is an anxious attachment always drawn to an avoidant attachment. They always want to be together, but they are not compatible.
At all.
The anxious is going to seek the validation of the avoidant. The avoidant's going to run away because they're avoidant. Yeah. But then the avoidant will always come back because they know they can get that supply from an anxious person.
As soon as they can tell that you're pulling away is when the avoidant will come in.
Yep. Yeah. And like clockwork. Yeah. Like clockwork.
It's kind of like one of those when you're starting to move on, all your exes come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
can sense
Look up
the
attachment.
Energy. They can sense the energy is shifting.
Attached. I'll put a link. That's so good. And then the last one is the self-righteous narcissist. These are the really cold, judgmental, very controlled. And we've been saying control like people like to be possessive and stuff. Controlled in the sense of not OCD, but everything is meticulous, right?
When we were talking about this earlier, we were talking about you normally typically see this in like military people. That they,
detail oriented,
very detail oriented. They get up, they make their bed a certain way. They're putting on their clothes. Their clothes
and if
are
it's
laid
not
out.
Right,
They're following a routine. They're eating certain foods.
Yes.
Like it's very
meticulous,
rigid,
cold. Where this is really
calculated.
Really scary though is exactly. There's no room for organic life to happen, right? Like that gives them a sense of control, which helps them maintain this control, like in their life.
Too, like,
their life
feels
with control.
Anxiety, if you divert off the plan, all hell breaks loose, and it's just you get a response, and you're like, "Whoa, where did that come from?"
Yeah, and like the strongest sign of being a well-adjusted person is how adaptable you can be. The more adaptable you are,
can you roll with
the more evolutionary.
Yeah.
But this also translates into morality and judgment of other people. They're the type where, they won't take into account people's like bad luck, or their hard times they've fallen off. Like it would be very much if you had saved your money like I did, you wouldn't be in this situation.
Right now, race. They're not taking into account, like I have certain privileges as a white
privilege,
woman
absolutely,
that you don't have as a person of color.
Yeah.
And so,
And so a lot of those people like, if you just work harder. They
pick up their, bootstraps and worked harder.
And they don't take into account they got an illness and lost their job because of the illness and like that kind of thing.
Or that they came from poverty, or that they came from an area that didn't have jobs. They came from a place where they couldn't afford college.
Yeah.
They didn't have the access to resources. They don't take in. They're just. I'm gonna say it.
Do it.
This is the boomers.
Yeah.
If research is coming out that boomers came out into the best economic situation out of any generation, and
post-war,
they came out making like $200,000 at a starting wage. So if you can kind of put that into perspective, if you were doing really well in like the 80s, you were making like $500,000 now.
Comparatively,
comparatively, if you kind of inflation-wise. And so boomers are very detached from
the plight of
people
next
nowadays
generations.
Are living in apartments, why people are not buying houses, why people don't want to have children. They're very detached.
Didn't you say
from
that boomers were the most narcissistic generation?
Yes.
Like studies are showing, like just because.
Yeah. Well, because they had privilege handed to them on a silver platter.
It was just a different time.
They came out and it was, you follow steps A, B, and C, you're going to get D, and they did it. And
so now that the world's changed and there's different...
They aren't taking into account the changes that we have.
And you see that in our politics. Like, it blows my mind with some of the politics, like even trans rights and just the lack of empathy of people putting themselves in other people's shoes. I know my life fundamentally is very different than your life. Yeah. That's the basis of being human, individuality.
My experience is different.
Different. And we need to allot for a society that has space for everyone. But when you have people like, anyway, we can get into that. But a lot of that self-righteous not putting yourself into someone else's shoes. This is really, the self-righteous narcissist is really intense when you have a parent. You're raised in a household like this. That can really shape and inform your life. You know what I mean? This lack of...
and make you susceptible.
God.
Yeah. In the future.
Big time.
Yeah.
It's just,
your normal.
it's a very cold household to live in. Like, it's a very judgmental space.
You're walking on eggshells in that house.
The rules, the invalidating, the shaming.
Shame.
This self-righteous narcissist, shame is their currency. Like, they're always shaming others, and that's a form of control, right?
Which is ironic because that's what they feel.
Yeah, you hit on the head right there.
Yeah,
exactly that.
They're projecting onto you. It's like when people say
low
like a
self-esteem.
cheater always accuses you of cheating.
Ooh.
It's the same with a narcissist. They're always projecting onto you what they're actually feeling.
Inside.
Yeah.
We're mirrors. Everything's
Yeah.
a mirror. Ooh, that's good. So we have the experience of growing up with a narcissistic parent. And again, you can have shades of all of this, but let's talk about our experience growing up with a narcissist and why we're so susceptible, like people coming from these households, why we're so susceptible to repeating these cycles. Like,
Well, I think you have to take into consideration that when you're growing up, you are developing what your norm is. And people who come from
You don't know
secure
better, but-
households are developing healthy attachments, whereas where you have trauma, chaos, you're not developing.
it's survival.
You're not developing in the sense of like you're learning things. You're literally trying to survive.
Yeah. And so you develop these coping mechanisms that enable you to survive.
The easiest way to get through this.
Yeah. And then the problem is when we get to adulthood, these patterns have to be unlearned and let go.
That is,
if you're aware of them.
That space.
Yeah, if you're aware of them. But then it even just takes doing the work and seeing a therapist, doing research. You know, if something like in this video like resonates with you, that's what starts the journey to knowing yourself. So I think we're more sensitive because we grew up in a house with a narcissist.
I think too the church.
Yeah, and the church. God, so
the church
much.
Trauma is very much built in shame and what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
And I have to earn my worthiness, so it has to be me that was the problem.
So a narcissistic parent will constantly diminish the needs, the wants, the emotions of the child because you're an extension of them, right? They're in control. It's all about them. So when
They're going to behave how they want you
when
to
the
behave.
child becomes smaller and smaller, when we had to learn to put our emotions aside to maintain the peace in the house, right? As we grow up,
You're too much of this. I need you to be more like this.
so it's not psychologically safe in essence, right?
No.
So you develop this way, but as an adult, again, when I encounter these narcissistic behaviors, like with this string of this last year has been a narcissistic
Ooh, it's been
playground.
fun to watch.
Girl, I'm going to have a master class on this shit, right? But it's interesting. I'm being triggered by these things, and I didn't even realize
You're
it.
attracting your parent.
Because I'm trying to heal this part, you know, and I'm doing the work.
I used to hate when people would say you're attracted to your parent, but it's true. You
Yep.
are attracted to your parent because you have to heal those parent wounds.
Yeah, yeah. And if you don't, you'll take that same baggage and it will just perpetuate a cycle of...
Well, you're going to keep finding the same partner.
Yeah.
Is really what it is.
Until you heal those
Yeah.
wounds. Anyway, that's really good, actually. Something I've learned through the course of this last relationship and why I'm going back to therapy because I really want to I want to heal these areas of my life. So I was curious on why I keep coming back to these narcissistic personality types. And obviously it's family of origin, but I came across in some of my research this term called betrayal blindness. And Dr. Jennifer Fried coined this term, why we overlook these red flags when we encounter people. Why are we always hoping for the best or looking for the best or seeing their potential rather than the
Putting
reality?
them on a pedestal.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And where does this unbalanced part come from?
Giving them qualities they don't necessarily have.
Yeah. And so everything comes from childhood and family of origin. So what I've realized is growing up in a house where my feelings and my emotions were invalidated and my emotional needs were pushed aside, I learned in that household that the only way to have a close connection, which is our biological design. We are meant to have close, deep, intimate relationships with other humans. That's
the human experience.
We need that to survive. You need love to survive, right? But I learned that if I was to be my authentic self, if I did what I wanted, if I voiced my real opinion, that love would be taken away. That I was not enough. I was damaged. I was powerful, right? So as I grow up and I operate out of these old mindsets, consciously or subconsciously, patterns, when people in these relationships where I should immediately, when a red flag goes off, I should be able to be like, my inner child's like, nope, we're not being protected, not safe, we should walk away. There's an override with this betrayal blindness where I know that if I do show up for myself, then I end that attachment and cut off any potential for closeness or relationship. So there's two things happening. There's a trigger in me freaking out because I don't want to lose. I want love. I want desire. I think I need it. It's all within me. I have it, and there's someone else who can offer that. Yeah. But it's the cycle that I've become aware of when he withdrew that. This was the first time where I was like, I don't need it.
Deuces.
Peace.
I'm out.
That's the growth. That's the power. I've recognized the cycle. Mm-hmm. That old little David, who was always afraid, he stayed in a marriage too long that wasn't healthy for him. He tolerated these guys that did not really have my heart. This was the first time I was able to see this betrayal blindness, why I was able to walk away and not feed into the cycle. Mm-hmm. And so,
or give him the reaction he wanted.
But it took a lot to get here. You know what I mean? It took a lot to get here. But again, I learned, don't be so hard on yourself, but recognize these patterns. Like if you are hoping the best, or you're thinking they're going to change, or you keep giving yourself up, it's only going to diminish you, and you're going to come back to the same point of emptiness eventually. You know what I mean? Of not being filled up in these relationships. So it's best if you recognize it.
You can only sacrifice so much of yourself in a relationship.
Yeah, but I want to encourage you and promise you there is more. And that's the thing. We don't see that because of that old wound, that old damage, the way we're conditioned, the way we're raised by our parents that put us in these, situations. Again, taking ownership, it's our job to do the work. I'm not a victim. I see it now. Now we can change. Now we can grow beyond it. You know what I mean? So if you see these red flags, if someone's telling you who they are and they're manipulating you and something's going off in you, listen to the flags.
Yeah.
Listen to the flags. Know your worth.
Notice the flags.
And know that they...
Don't rationalize.
Yeah.
People tell you who they are. In the beginning, they're going to tell on themselves. They're going to give you indicators. There are going to be flags, and don't try to rationalize it. People have to prove to you that they're worthy of your time and energy.
Yeah.
It's not you have to prove it to them. It's you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you.
Yeah. There's another piece I want to talk about with this, the betrayal blindness of coming from that home, those situations. We have a tendency, because it's shame, right? We're shamed for feeling the way we do because the narcissist wants the control. Yeah. So we feel like we can take it on. And this, when this last experience with the night it all kind of came out, when I went to see my friends, he made it about him and how I had ignored him or did not take him into account or his feelings. And I noticed myself taking on the blame. My immediate instinct was, there was another guy last summer, we got together, we had this amazing night, we hooked up the first night, and then we started talking. So 2 weeks into it, he's like, I have something to tell you. And I was like, okay. And he told me he was actually positive. And I'm on PrEP, I'm on all this stuff, and undetectable is not transmissible. I get it. But that's a big thing. That's a big thing you want to share, with someone you're going to be intimate with. That's important. Yes, you take care of yourself, but you
don't need to be having sex if you can't have these conversations.
Yeah, right? Especially.
If you can't ask, are you on birth control? Or do I have to wear a condom? or are you sleeping with other people? If you
It's a
can't
big
have
deal.
adult conversations with people, you don't need to be sexually active.
And so he tells me this 2 weeks after the fact. And it's interesting because that same piece, that taking on the blame, that shame, that not enoughness, the little child that believes that, I immediately put myself in his position before my anger was roused, or even checking.
We're learning.
Yeah.
Dave is learning this season how to take up space and
Yes.
say, I need to think about this.
Getting in touch with my anger.
Yeah. I need to figure out how I feel about this before I tell you I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Because your immediate reaction was, oh, okay.
I wanted to make sure
understand.
he felt comfortable.
Yeah.
When my boundary had been crossed.
You didn't even have time to
Process.
digest or process how you felt about it.
So my trauma response was to make sure his needs were okay, like he was comfortable, that he knew I was okay with it, that I'm safe. When the injury or the boundary push was, you should have told me this the moment we started undressing, asshole. It's interesting.
Taking away your power to make an informed
choice.
decision.
Yes. Yeah. So it wasn't insidious, and it was in the moment, and obviously he's not a bad person, but at the same time, my person would not do that, right? And showing up, it took me 2 days to feel that fully, and I had to have a conversation after. I was like, what happened, it did bother me, and it was not right, and I have to end this.
We need to normalize taking space to process your emotions.
Yeah.
A lot of people that are not water signs or not really adapt to handling and making space for their emotions need a lot of time to process.
She's talking to air signs.
And fire signs.
Yeah, because we're passionate, intense, and move cerebral. Yeah.
Earth signs.
Yeah.
You have to take time. It's okay to tell people
I need a minute.
Need space. I need to back off.
And normalizing giving people space.
Communicate it. Yeah. And then, normalizing that it's okay for people to ask for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
that's a way of somebody saying, it's like a boundary. It's, I want to keep you in my life, but I need time to process this.
Yeah.
I need to think about this.
It was just fascinating how I took on that blame, and that is my old wound that I still haven't healed. And I did it again with this last guy, where I immediately, when he started to throw this tantrum, or how could you not think about me, I immediately stepped into that, taking on more blame than I should. It was over-rationalizing. Maybe I did overstep. So when we see that and recognize that behavior,
I think it's important too, just to interject, you need to step out of the rationalizing piece and see where the rationalization is coming from. Is it you're trying to understand somebody, or is it based in shame that you think that you did something wrong and it had to be something you did because of a shame piece?
Why is it you? Yeah. Not that we all have our part, but
are you being empathetic, or are you putting your trauma into this?
Yeah.
Why are you rationalizing it?
Where's that line? Okay, so if you find yourself in a relationship with a narcissist, we're not going to tell you, because you need a professional. If you are in a legitimate and you want to leave this relationship, you have to get a professional.
Help.
Yes, and have a good support. Chances are, if it is a narcissist, they probably isolated you a bit. You might be a little more detached from your community than you think. But start looking at this stuff. How do you respond to a narcissist once you're onto their game? Once you start recognizing, oh my God, they have these tendencies. Oh my God,
pull your energy back.
What does that look like if you're in a relationship?
I'm no longer responding to your tantrum.
Tantrums.
I'm walking away.
The cycle, breaking, putting a stop in the cycle, right?
Not feeding into it, not giving them a response.
Yeah.
A tantrum
deflating
is,
them,
I need you to respond to me. I need the attention. And when you take away your energy, you're not giving them what they want.
That narcissistic supply. But be warned, there will be a reaction, because that is the whole cycle of a narcissistic relationship. They're going to try and blame and explode and make it your fault.
Control comes from the emotion.
Yeah.
They know if they get angry, it's going to activate something in you.
And it triggers you, and then that makes them feel good. And then they throw it back on you, oh, why are you getting so, how could you act this way? Because it validates their behavior.
When I'm just reacting from what you've done.
The gaslighting.
And somehow I'm being gaslit to make me feel like my response is totally unnormal when you're...
And then you start questioning, am I oh my God, am I the crazy one? And that's what they do, because then they throw the gaslighting on it.
Yeah.
And they're like, wow, that's really intense. You're acting kind of, ooh.
Yeah.
So, but once you're onto
That's not for me.
yeah, but once you're onto their game and they realize it, it can get a little intense there too. Like it can get very messy, because then they get angry, they lash out, right? So that's when you want to.
Or they could just leave, because
if you don't give
want
them
somebody who is going to play the games with them.
Yeah, be controlled.
Who doesn't see them for who they are.
Yeah, and who can feed.
So you need to be prepared for that too. That it may be the end of the relationship.
Yeah.
They may just walk away.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
That's a good thing in the long run. It's not comfortable. Yeah, and it hurts.
It's shocking when somebody just cuts you off, but
yeah,
you know.
But you're dodging a bullet, because the relationship is not healthy, right? And it's admitting that. And again, that piece of, we need that attachment. We crave it. Giving yourself what you need, the love, standing up for yourself, standing in your power, so you can attract what is worthy of you and what you need. What you
this isn't
really
for you, you're gonna find what is.
Oh, I promise. There's better. There is better, and a better fit, you know? Heavy stuff at the narcissist level, but we would like to hear from you about your experiences. Have you grown up with a narcissistic parent or a partner? What does that look like? How did you get out of it? Are you still in it? Give us some examples. And I would love to talk about this with you, because the more we
shine light on it.
Yeah, it gives one hope and inspiration to others going through it, but also it normalizes that we don't have to be victims to this. We aren't victims, you know.
No.
You can change.
Take back the power.
Yes, that's exactly it. Reclaiming our power. So I love you guys, and thank you for watching. I am so excited for our next topic. I don't know what it is yet, though.
We don't know.
And we'll see where it goes, but we hope you have a great week. Follow us in the Garden of Divinity, and let's start talking. We'd love to hear from you. We'll see you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
'Cause I found my way.